Events that led up to the Civil War. A 50-year timeline consisting of 9 events which I believe to be the most important events leading up to the Civil War. In an effort to balance the powers of Congress, the Missouri Compromise introduced Missouri as a slave state and Maine, which broke off of Massachusetts, as a free state. Also included that there would be no slave states above the 3630 latitude line. On August 21st, 1831, the self-proclaimed prophet Nat Turner launched the deadliest slave revolt in the history of the United States. After Nat and his followers killed 55 whites, the revolt slowly died out and Nat was captured about 2 months later. In 1846, David Wilmot, a Democratic member of Congress, proposed the Wilmot Proviso, which stated that the appropriations would be paid to Mexico for the land seized during the Mexican-American War. The appropriation would also halt slavery's expansion into the West. The Senate could not reach an agreement on the bill and it never went to the President. This further caused divide between the North and the South in Congress. The Compromise of 1850 consisted of 5 laws passed on the subject of slavery. California wanted to enter the Union as a free state, and this unsettled the balance between the North and the South. As a result, the Fugitive Slave Act was amended and the slave trade in Washington, D.C. was abolished. Uncle Tom's Cabin was a book written by Harriet Beecher in 1852 and gained popularity in the North as it detailed the brutality of the slavery in the South. Stowe, a Connecticut-born teacher at the Hartford Female Seminary and an active abolitionist, featured the character of Uncle Tom, a long-suffering black slave around whom the stories of the other characters revolve. Uncle Tom's Cabin was a best-selling novel of the 19th century and the second best-selling book of that century, following the Bible. Bleeding Kansas is an event that occurred between 1854 and 1861. After the Kansas-Nebraska Act reopened the possibility of slaves expanding west, violence broke out on the Senate floor when Preston Brooks started beating Senator Charles Sumner. Many Southerners rejoiced in Preston's defense of slavery. John Brown, a strict Calvinist, led a posse to the homes of pro-slavery people in Kansas and announced that he was the Northern Army and began to kill pro-slavery settlers. Dred Scott v. Stanford in 1857 was a court case that led to the Supreme Court stating that people of African American descent, whether free or slave, were not American citizens. Also included that the rights of slave owners were constitutionally protected by the Fifth Amendment. This act embroiled pro-slavery Southerners to expand slavery to all reaches of the nation. In 1859, John Brown led an 18-man team to Harper's Ferry, Virginia, with the intention of seizing the arms and ammunition in the Federal arsenal and to lead a huge slave revolt in the South. After seizing the Federal complex, Brown realized that the slaves did not revolt and join his cause. Robert E. Lee was sent from Washington to capture Brown. In the North, the raid was greeted with widespread approval. John was turned into a martyr, but that is not how the South viewed it. Southerners were shocked, and they could not believe how anyone could be so sympathetic to property damage, theft, and death. Abraham Lincoln ran against John Breckinridge in 1860, a Southern Democrat from the state of Kentucky. Lincoln won no votes from the 9 states in the South, and in the same counties was not even on the ballot. Lincoln won less than 40% of the popular vote, but sectional division in the U.S. led him to win 17 states and become the new President of the United States. 6 months after Lincoln was elected, South Carolina seceded, which caused a snowball effect into the South. The Civil War ended on May 9, 1865, with Robert E. Lee surrendering. It was a Union victory, and the U.S. territorial integrity was preserved. Slavery was abolished, and this was the beginning of the Reconstruction era.